Hi guys, welcome to a new series, China Bound. What's it like for a startup founder to work from China? I'll be here for the next 2 months. I would like to share with you some of the experiences I've had in preparing for the trip. At the same time, some of the interesting go-to-market strategies and the marketing strategies the Chinese here have while addressing the domestic market. So I hope that this series will be interesting for you if you're interested in opening the market in China and learn some of the interesting quirks which perhaps coming from English-speaking country you may not be aware of. So in terms of preparation, knowing that China doesn't allow you to have access to Meta tools and Google tools as well, what I did was that I prepared a lot of posts in advance using Meta Planner, using LinkedIn scheduled posts to make sure that I have enough content to run while I'm away in China in case I can't access any of this via VPN. VPN is an iffy thing in China. Some of the VPN services will promise you access, but even then, it's intermittent. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And as a business owner, you can't afford to have it down for too long. So I'll prepare some evergreen content which I can use to access, to schedule the posts to make sure that my LinkedIn followers and my Facebook and Instagram followers don't get left out in the cold when I'm not around to post stuff as well. Of course, having a plan B backup is very important. So I've arranged with a friend in Singapore who helped me do posting as well, just in case I cannot access um, Instagram and all the various social media tools I usually use to publicize interesting facts and interesting go-to-market strategies I may have. Now, how about AI tools in China? No, you can't use AI tools in China. They've blocked ChatGPT and a lot of the AI platforms. In fact, some of the platforms you may be familiar with, like Canva, which uses AI in their services, are blocked. Not say blocked per se as you can't access it, but they have a separate platform for the Chinese market versus the international market. So some of the tools which you may be familiar with in Canva may not exist in the Canva version for China. And most importantly, the resources not shared. So if you have an account in international version of Canva and you have an account in the China version of Canva, you may not be able to share the stuff you have built in the international version with the Chinese version. So be aware of that. Whenever you have any collaboration tools, you may have to have a backup. Bring along your hard copies of all the tools you may have, just in case you cannot access it when you're over here. So what about payments? In China, they treat domestic yuan and offshore yuan as two separate currencies. So if you're a business in China, which, for example, internet business like McDonald's, you can accept offshore yuan as well as domestic yuan, which means you can use your international credit cards to pay for your purchases. But domestic businesses, which only have domestic yuan collection capabilities, they can't. So even if you have a union pay from a different country outside of China, you can't use it to pay for these businesses because your money is offshore yuan. What are the alternatives? If you are a foreigner, suggest you get an Alipay account because they have a tie-up with Shanghai Bank, which allows you to top up the Alipay wallet with domestic yuan using Shanghai Bank's services. So in that scenario, you can use your foreign credit cards to pay for purchases in China. WeChat Pay is out of luck for you because you cannot use foreign credit cards with WeChat Pay. Alternatively, if you have a friend or a relative in China, you can ask them to send you a relative bank card, which allows them to share their domestic bank account with your WeChat Pay. So you essentially be using their money when it comes to purchases, and that is one way to go around using WeChat Pay in China. What does this mean for you as a business in China? In other words, if you are planning to open a company in China and you want to address the local domestic market, you must have a local bank account. That goes without saying, because otherwise you cannot be collecting in domestic yuan. You can't use Alipay, you can't use WeChat Pay. And doing business in China, you must be able to collect in these two major platforms when it comes to paying for purchases for your consumers. No other forms of credit cards and stuff are easy to use here. And if you do not have the ability to collect payments in WeChat Pay or Alipay, you'll be cutting out easily 90% of the market. The people here are very familiar with digital payment services, so just be aware that the KYC or KYB thing issue in China, they know their customers, they know their businesses, because everybody is registered, everybody is tracked based on their bank account, based on how they spend as well. So this is something you take note of if you're interested in opening and addressing the domestic market. Now, marketing in China. You do need to have it in localized content, not only in terms of translating into simplified Chinese, but also knowing the little quirks, little slangs of how they speak in the different regions. Whether you are from a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 city, you have to be able to know what are the local nuances in terms of how they address their consumers, how they address the people they're trying to sell to. Clever turn of phrases may be good, but because there's just so many companies here fighting for the same eyeballs, in any of your marketing materials, you must be specific in what you are addressing, what value you bring to them. Because along with what you're trying to bring across, it may be unique to you. It may be unique outside of China. But in China, there could be 20, 30, 100 other companies which are selling something very similar and will be able to address the market in more local terms, which means they have a strong advantage over you when it comes to hitting the same market segment as you do. So what do I suggest you do? Get a partner in China. Make sure that this is the person who knows the market very well and they'll be able to address it. This is something as a person from even from Singapore, we just cannot be in the same league in terms of how we market our things to the local domestic people here.